Hmm.
Hi there. Welcome everybody. Welcome to another ZoukCast episode and Nymph. And we are doing a proper episode this week after the fail that we had last week.
Fairly with Murphy, yeah.
Yeah.
That was
We
funny. It was
decided not
epic.
to book
But
him for this week, but to book him for when you are physically with him, so we can force him to be on the show, and we don't have any more problem. But this time we went
yeah,
with a European guy that we knew he will be reliable. he will he will be on time. So he's Willem from Holland. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me. It's an honor to be on the show.
Well, it's an honor to have you, and it's an honor to have all the guests that are agreeing to talk with us because when we started this project, we didn't even know if we will have one big person watching, and it's seeming to grow and grow, and people is getting interested into it. And especially with your episode, there was like some attention. We just announced today, and actually we got like two shares immediately because they were interested into the title of the episode. So that's good. Willem, first of all, why don't you introduce yourself to all the audience? Because I have seen you since I began in Zouk. Like you are there forever, but not maybe not you're not traveling so much around the world. So maybe some people won't know you. So what can you tell about yourself?
Okay, so first the current self. I have my own dance school here in Rotterdam, and that takes almost all of my time. And the little time that I have left is taken by my girlfriend, so there's not much more to share. I'm traveling a bit, but not as much as I used to. So when I was self-employed in the sense that other schools could hire me, then I was traveling a lot more. But having an own school, which is very nice, has its drawbacks that you are less free of just roaming around the world. So the school started with me teaching zouk, and now it has progressed to a full-blown dance school. We have so the major subjects for partner dance is zouk and bachata, and for theater dance is African dance and contemporary dance. But we also do pole dancing, break dance, samba, ballet, jazz, like you name it, we teach it.
Nice.
And the way that I got here, that was a bit of a story. So first I was working in a lab, like I think a lot of zouk dancers or male zouk dancers do. The IT community is one of the biggest contributors to to zouk, I would say. But I was not very satisfied with the work I was doing in the lab. Like I was doing chemical research, and the puzzles were nice, but the social interaction. I'm not saying my colleagues were nerds, although they were. It was not very stimulating. So I was dancing as a hobby for a few years, and in 2008 I decided to switch it around. So to start dance and start teaching dance full time, and yeah, I've been doing that ever since. And there was just no space and time to do any science anymore. But I try to integrate it into the dance, and that's I think why I'm so happy with the title and the content of the discussion today. We're going to discuss methodology in teaching zouk. And I try to retain that scientific approach, also falsifiability, the trial and error, all the methods that you use in scientific experiments. And more or less, yes, the students are now the guinea pigs, but trying to be as honest to them and to myself as possible. And in the end, it's to their benefit as well if the method improves.
let me ask you a question, because there are so many people that they find themselves into this uh, division of pathways where you want to dance more, but you also want to eat, and you need some money for doing that. So me myself, I was in this cross path some years ago. I decided that I could do both. You know, like I could stick with my professional career as a computer scientist, and I would have much more money than going to dance. How did it turn out for you?
Oh, that is the hard reality. I was just with my accountant a few months ago, finishing up the numbers of 2015, and finally, I'm making money. Not a lot, but now it secures and I can live from it. And this took me 7 years. So now my standard of living, if you look at it materially, is the same as when I was doing research at the university.
Okay.
So it took me 7 years to get here, and I think this is more or less the average starting with any company. Like it will take you 3 to 7 years before you can really comfortably live from it. So it's a risk, and it's a lot of work. It's people think, wow, you're living the dream, and yes, that's also true because I love what I do, but it comes with a sacrifice. It's the insecurity of knowing or not knowing if you have enough money to eat, and if you will succeed, if it will ever go anywhere. And then with Zouk, of course, specifically because it's such a small market.
Yeah.
But fortunately, the people who are there are very supportive, and they are very committed to the dance. So that gives a lot back.
So there's no looking back for you. You will stick with that decision, and it's been good for you.
Now for sure. I mean, the school is running very well, and I still love what I do. So now it's in a sense I'm there that I tried it and I succeeded, but it was not an easy road. And honestly, if people ask me like, yeah, I want to do this as well, what do you think, should I do it? The first 3 times they will ask me, I will say, no, don't do it. So only after the 4th time they say, but I really want to do it, then I will say, okay, then go for it, because you have to be a little mad.
Yeah.
Especially when you have the other option of making money in a much easier way. For instance, I think if I would have stayed with science and would have just had a nice income, I could have traveled to any festival every weekend, just enjoying the festivals, not worrying about anything else.
Yeah.
So, of course, I still go to festivals, but not that many. And most of the time, I have to work there, which is great, but it's also work. So it is a different dynamic.
Okay. So I guess that people that has to decide has to take into account all those little struggles that you.
Or they just have to go full blown into it. Like, don't think about the consequences. Don't think about the future. Just go. If you have that approach and you can keep that approach for at least 3-4 years, then probably it's the right choice.
Okay. So that's a piece of advice for all the people there trying to decide.
Yeah, and if you really want to do it, I can't say my approach was the approach. There will very well be other possibilities to do it, but I think first doing it part-time. So I was teaching for 3 or 4 years before I took the step of doing it full-time, and also the first 2 years of doing it full-time, I was employed by other schools. So I didn't have to worry too much about the administration or the marketing or the location. I was just mostly concerned with the content, like the teaching, and of course retaining the students and helping them grow, but it was more the core business. All the other stuff around it is such a distraction. If you start as a teacher, I think you really have to focus on your core business, and that is teaching, instead of setting up a business.
Yeah, stick to your business, and all the other things try not to bother so much.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. So, Willem, let's go about the main subject of the episode, methodology, right? So,
Yes.
I guess that when we talk methodology, we should distinguish between the methodology that you use to teach students versus the methodology that you would use to teach future teachers. Do they teach them differently? How do you approach each thing, and what's the basis of your methodology?
Yeah. So the methodology changed over the years, of course. When I gained experience and gained insight, I constantly rewrote my manual. Literally, like I made a manual for it, and I'm still rewriting it. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so one day I'll publish it as a book, I think. But for sure, teaching people who want to do the dance and people who want to do and teach the dance, that is two different categories. In a sense, teaching teachers is easier because they have a drive of learning the dance. So you don't have to get into a lot of tricks to motivate them to learn something, because they have
a goal. They have a goal.
Further in, so to say. But the other thing is that you are much more focusing on awareness, and in a not even in a bodily aspect or physical aspect, but much more in a mental or social aspect. Because when you teach, normally your mind is busy in at least 3 or 4 layers. So you take care of the room, you take care of the group, you try to pay attention to individual students, you think of what your learning goals are, you try to analyze what is the challenge for the whole group, what is the challenge per person. So all these processes are working at the same time, and it's like driving a car. The first time you drive a car, you go mad with all the information and you start sweating, and now when you drive a car, all these processes of putting the gas in, using the clutch, looking if there's traffic on your left, all that kind of stuff happens automatically. But to teach a person to be aware of all these processes and how to filter it, mainly, I would say that is the biggest difference of teaching teachers and teaching students. So the multifaceted approach of a teacher, like it's a much more mental job, and a dancer is almost the opposite. You want to get people not to think and just try to feel in their body instead of thinking what is right.
Yeah. So let's start on the first level, like teaching students. We were talking before we started the episode about your scientific approach, and I was very happy to hear that you are applying. Like, let me show again to all the people here. This guy's teachings, like Isaac Newton.
Exactly. Everybody who dances should know Newton for sure.
Okay, so how do you apply all the laws of Newton and other science, like the falsation methodology and everything that the scientific method have in it? How do you apply that to teaching zouk?
So, of course, there is also a few layers, because I don't think for the students, they don't have to know how Newton got his ideas to set up his hypothesis about all his physics laws, but they should know and experience the effects of it. So I use the scientific method more to make the teaching method more intuitive for the students. And of course, because I'm me, I'm a bit of a nerd, I like to throw in these things like the third law of Newton and the geostationary orbit as the perfect distance between two people while partner dancing, these kind of things. But I wouldn't say all teachers have to do those kind of jokes or coat hangers to remember certain principles, how to use their body or how to interact with other bodies.
So in that sense, what you explain some analogies to the people,
Yes.
like you compare
So
with.
analogies are really important for people to get an idea of what it is that you want them to do. And once you get that analogy working in their body, you want to focus on the feeling it has in their body, because I think dancing specifically, like there in teaching and didactics and pedagogy, there's notion that you have audio input, like speech, and visual input, and kinesthetic input, so the touch you have. But especially in partner dance, I would say go with what you feel, but of course, to get people to feel that or to do the things so they can start feeling, you use the other two. So you give instruction and you show, but it's all directed for them to feel what's happening in their body.
Yeah.
Because once they can repeat that feeling, then they understand. It's like a bodily understanding of concepts. So it's always, the method is always a model for them to entice them or to stimulate them to try something which they haven't done before. If it makes them feel comfortable, or if they feel that they have a connection, then actually that becomes the focus. So you want to stimulate, and then you can throw away all the analogs, just focus on how it feels.
So let me ask a question to Nymph. Nymph,
yes.
We had also a guest that he worked with analogies by teaching, but it was a complete different kind of analogy, like all the chi things and like Henry from New York.
Yes, Henry.
So do you think that any kind of analogy is valid, but you have to use the certain kind of analogy for a certain kind of student? I mean, if you use the chi analogy to me, you will lose me instantly from your class. But if you use the orbital or the space station analogy, for me would be like awesome, right? So how do you distinguish in between these kind of people and what kind of analogy you should use?
Is that question for me or for Willem?
Whatever of you.
So Ray, you go first. I'll go second.
I try to use different. I use the spiritual kind of energy when people are more spiritual. But if they are not spiritual, I use the explain with how the world works with the energy, with the attraction. You know, this kind of energy. I work with this explanation in this way. It's also like science, like the attraction energy or pulling energy that's around the world. You know, I use in this sentence to explain people.
So you either use spiritual energy or electromagnetism.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Willem?
Well, I think Einstein's biggest goal was the unifying theory, and now we are getting closer with quantum physics of trying to merge the four main powers in the universe. But it's still a physics approach, and I think a unifying theory can only be found in an experience, so it cannot be put in words. The model you use, of course, changes to students. If I teach at a university, especially a technical university, then of course I will use much more references to science. And if you teach to a group of dancers in a dance academy, then you use probably more spiritual terms. And both are right or not right in the same aspects, that they are just an approximation of reality. Mm-hmm. So it is the thing that the teacher feels most comfortable with, and that the student has most experience with. That will determine the kind of analogies you will use. But the goal is not the analogies, of course, and it's not about proving that it's right or wrong. It's about making them experience it in their bodies, and whatever tools it takes, whatever is necessary is valid.
Okay, so in your experience,
because like Henry started Zouk dancing with me when he was coming to a Zouk workshop I was teaching in Washington DC, and he specifically came for Zouk because he saw it somewhere and he thought, I have to learn it. And he was first teaching salsa, and like this, he liked it, he grabbed it immediately, and he made it something of his own. And then people might ask, well, but he's not following your method. What do you think of him? Is he like a heretic, or is he going against your religion? But I think it's nothing like that at all. He is following his path, and I'm following my path, and we're good friends, and he explained his philosophy to me, and I think it's wonderful. Like there's no, to me, there is no negation. It's not that the method I use is better or worse. The method he uses is good for him and good for his students, and I think for me it goes the same way. But there, I think you have to take 3 steps back and look what is the core of the method. Like if your goal is to make people better dancers, that is already a good starting point. I think you could go even further and say you have to want to help people to learn and appreciate themselves better. Because if they get to that point, then a lot of natural movements which are already there in people when they are born will be activated again. Yeah. Like a lot of movements we do are not new, so actually the whole idea of us teaching them others, no, most of the students are already capable of 99% of all movements we do. We just have to help them to get to that point where they can do it again.
Yeah, to rediscover.
To rediscover, yes, okay. Yes.
So, in your experience, when you try, you show them these analogies just to make them understand that at a certain point you have to get rid of the analogies and focus on the core of the knowledge. So, how do you do this transition for them?
Well, it is almost an upbringing. Like you teach a lot of behavior as well to the students, how to be a student. And once they understand that for them asking questions is sometimes good and sometimes not, so you do not always allow students to ask questions because it gets them in their head, and that's not always like if they do something terribly wrong and they don't understand why, then of course it's good to try to approach it from a more intellectual way. But in most cases it's just letting them make mistakes, trying to steer them, trying to make them feel, so they get to the point where they physically start to understand. So at the point where you start to explain less or use less references is when you see that they are focused on body tension or grounding or making a real connection with their partner, because then they need a lot less instruction.
Mm-hmm. So you could say that the analogies are more for the mind, and when the body is taking over because the body is understanding what the mind wants, then the analogies are not so much in need, right?
True. Yes.
Okay. So explain a little bit more about these science concepts that you use into the. For example, you told me about the third law of Newton. So give us an example of how do you use this?
I'll take pages out of it. For instance, this typically pictures of the manual, and it shows how proprioception works. Now, proprioception is what you could say a sixth sense of our body. It is the ability in our tendons and in our muscle fibers to register force. And this is called tension modulation. And to be able to be reactive, in a sense, for instance, the third law of Newton is action is minus reaction. Meaning that if somebody pushes, you want your partner to push back. So the amount of force is equal, but also at the same time. If it's later, then you get a drive. So for that to happen, they need to have a body awareness on different levels, and one of them is proprioception. So they are aware of the, I think in other scientific terms, it's called haptic feedback. So they feel that pressure is put on them, and they start giving the same amount of pressure back instead of giving more back. This is, I would say, a very important concept for students to be able to dance together. Now, first I try to explain this with third law of Newton, making some kind of jokes. But once they have this concept, it's not necessary anymore, and I don't have to explain how proprioception works. They know it because they can make it work. So I just have to get them to apply it to not only hand-hand connection, but maybe chest-chest connection or hip connection. So they get that awareness in other parts of their body as well.
Yeah. Nice. So when you travel around and you go outside of your school, how do you find the reception of the students that are not used to your kind of teachings? Maybe they are used to teachers that they show a combination and they try to make the students copy that, and they don't explain so much. Do you find some resistance to such a guy that explains so much and so technically?
The opposite. I get a lot like, finally, now I get it. It's so nice that somebody explains it in detail. And then, of course, I'm flattered, but I also think, well, yeah, but it's just the explanation. The work for the student is not about understanding the explanation, it is about getting it into your body. So for me it's like, good, but it's only halfway.
Yeah, but it's good for them to understand, because
of course, because then the mind can help the body instead of working against it. Yeah. I'm not traveling very much anymore. I've done a lot of traveling. So 2008 to 2008, I've done a lot of teaching in New Zealand, in the United States, in Germany, and Holland. So I think around the world there's 50 teachers more or less following my method. At least they had that started. So I don't think, even if I have a group that is very that I'm teaching for the first time, probably they had some encounter with a more methodic approach to dance teaching or teaching dance. And not to take all the credit, I think looking at the development of Zouk, I started dancing Zouk in 2002, so it was relatively new in Europe. It started in 1999. At that time, it was mostly dancers just doing their thing and trying to dance without any sense of the techniques, with any sense of method. And there were some, like goes to, for instance, this is sports education. He had a methodology from his background, but a lot of people, great dancers, they were really clueless in teaching. This was also motivation. I was one of the nerds trying to understand the system in it, and I couldn't figure out what the system was. It was big stimulation to trying to analyze it, the system, and once I got to that system, I was really happy and tried to pass it on. So for people who were not brought up in a dance culture, to dance.
So let me summarize what I understood, because the sound was not so good. I don't know if Nymph was listening better than me.
Yeah, no, it's the same.
So just to make to the audience clear what you were saying, or what I got from what you were saying. Back in 2002, when you started dancing, there was not so much experienced dancers or teachers, so there was not so much methodology.
Yes.
And you were struggling to find the methodology, and then when you found the methodology, you were happy to pass on by, and you start to research more and try to make sense of everything before going to teach, right?
Yes, correct.
So anything that I missed from the whole explanation, because the sound was really, really weird.
Sorry. Well, I think you summarized it quite well. Nothing to add there. So,
okay, so let's change the subject a little bit. About the zouk world right now, and the amount of festivals and the amount of teachers. Every festival has some new name in it, and so now the teachers / instructors / artists or performers, I would say we are quite a lot, right? So
which is a beautiful thing, but it's also might be an alarming thing.
Yeah, I was going there. Like it's great for the scene to grow, but maybe for the number of people involved as the base of the pyramid, like the students, maybe there's too many artists, too many teachers, too many festivals, and too many different styles and everything, and even methodologies, maybe. So how do you see the zouk scene right now relating to that?
Okay, so this is a bit of a political question, and I'll try to be as politically correct as I can be, but I want to be open and honest as well. So, of course, the zouk community as a dance community, where you look at the amount of money that goes around and the amount of students that are there is not nearly big enough to sustain 50 or 100 professional teachers from that's very clear. I mean, I'm fortunate that I can do it, but this is not. I can't ask my fellow teachers to do their job, and they must do it full time because the community is not large enough. So, on the other hand, you could also say, if people starting to do it professionally, it's still might grow.
William, let me stop you for a moment, because the sound is again going. I don't know if you should talk closer to your microphone or farther. Maybe we can try. That's worse, I think. Maybe farther.
1 second.
Now I can listen better.
I reopened it.
Yeah, I think it's when you go closer, the microphone shuts down. So maybe if you stand back a little bit. Let's try.
Better?
Now I can hear you better. So can you re-elaborate what you were saying?
Yeah. So the zouk scene is not big enough to support 100 professional teachers. So I can't ask of my fellow teachers that they quit their regular jobs and start teaching only zouk. On the other hand, if we get people who are involved professionally, I don't mean in a left sense, but in a time sense, so that they can put in 50 to 100 hours a week, then of course you could also expect the scene to grow. So it is the story of the chicken and the egg.
Yeah.
If you look at festivals, I think a lot responsibility lies with the organizers, because of course everybody wants to be a star, and people from Brazil, they still see Europe as, if you have gone to Europe, then you can check that off your list, then man. So there, I would personally, if I would organize a festival, I've done a few festivals, but I don't aspire to do more. I would be much more cautious in just inviting everybody, so that the festival still means something. That the teachers you get there are not only great dancers, but are actually capable of teaching, and not only in a scientific way, but also in a socially way, so that people learn how to behave, how to communicate together, how to make a nice energy in a festival. These are all added things. So that is my light point of critique. I think there should be more drive for festival organizers to try to make something really good and really unique in the festival, instead of making the biggest festival with the most names. Just hiring anybody who wants to be on stage because he or she has a Brazilian name.
Yeah. So you would say that you prefer to aim on a festival level as well, to quality instead of quantity, right?
Absolutely. So, for instance, sports used to be a really big festival. I think it still is. It's a big festival. Breda in Holland is a big festival, and it has its specific flavor. The parties are awesome. When you see 1,000 people dancing together, it is. Yeah, it's something you get goosebumps from. Like, this is beautiful to see and to experience and to be part of.
Yeah.
But to be very honest, the quality of the lessons suffer.
Mm-hmm.
The quality of lessons of a small festival are normally quite a bit better than the bigger festivals, and has nothing to do with the teaching skills, but it has more to do with the selection and organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then there's the usual struggle between being profitable as a festival and having the exact amount of quantity. Yeah, so we ran out of time like 5 minutes ago.
The point is on the start. This is a really important part of the growth or suppressed the dance scene. So if you start doing your own thing, of course this is beautiful and every artist should do this. But there is a confusion between artist and teacher.
Yeah.
So an artist makes his own dance style, but a teacher makes his own methodology. A teacher should make his own style. Maybe as his artist self, he should create his own style. A teacher is a perpetuation and in sort of sense a guidance to people becoming part of a larger group.
Yeah.
And if you already make that group a lot smaller, then I don't know if that is so advantageous. So this is one of the core principles I have. Like, when I make a show, I try to keep the core of Zouk, but I will be much more experimental, putting in African elements or contemporary elements, trying to really every time reinvent myself.
Yeah.
For teaching, I don't want to every time reinvent myself. I just want to tweak it. Every course I do, I will change it a little bit so I get the best product for the student. And the methodology is based on them being able to dance with everybody and enjoy themselves while dancing. It's not trying to create something which specifically is labeled Willem Zouk. Like, this is, for me, is the opposite of what I want to reach as a teacher.
Nice. So Willem, I think that we should meet on another episode to talk about the second part that we referred, like teaching to teachers, because we ran out of time 5 minutes ago, and sincerely, the quality of the sound right now is starting to crumble. So last thing that I want to clarify for the audience, if they didn't understand what you were saying, You were stating that there's a difference between artist and teacher, and both of them are aimed to different goals. Like an artist would sell more passes for the congresses because people want to see them and they want to maybe dance with them. But a teacher has a very different goal, which is to serve as a guidance and as a mentor to the students, and they should be focused not on reinventing themselves every time, but on the incremental improvement of their teachings, right?
Perfect. Perfectly said.
Okay, so that's I guess a good point to finish for today. And I want to thank you for being here. For me, it's been a really good talk because I can relate a lot to being also a science nerd. I can relate a lot to all the things that you said and you are trying to work with. So, Willem, thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Also, Jess, thank you for inviting. And hope we can do another Comcast with better sound. I'll buy a new microphone and camera, and let's see if it works then.
Perfect. Okay, Nymph,
Yes.
anything else that you want to say before we...
Yeah, there's a girl, Sheena. She had some questions for Willem, but I think maybe it's better to ask outside this because the sound quality is better and it's disturbing.
Yeah,
But it was like Sheena would like to know
on the Facebook image that we have. So Willem, if you are willing to do that, maybe you can answer them on the Facebook. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. So Nymph, thanks also to you for being here from your temporary
staying. Yeah.
And for everybody else, see you next week, hopefully with a guest that show up like Willem did. And let's see, because we don't have anybody close right now, but we will work hard with the ladies from production, Sandra and Sheena, that they are always so hard workers and they are always easing our lives so much because we don't need to worry so much about the production side. They take charge of everything, and thank you very much, ladies. Also, remember that talking about festivals, we have in just a month and a half our own festival going on. So if you don't have your pass, be quick because the hotel is fully booked. So you now have to go to the second option hotel, and the passes are going to increase the prices really soon. So buy your passes now. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed as well as I did, and see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.